This meeting is being recorded.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the second FASTER webinar for the FASTER project, which is installing 73 very much needed DC chargers across the Republic of Ireland, Northern Ireland, and the west coast of Scotland. Today, we've got a special two-part webinar for you. We're going to be helping anyone who's looking to start their EV journey. Are EVs all milk floats or noddy cars? They're absolutely not, but just how wide a selection of electric vehicles is out there is absolutely snowballed, particularly within the last couple of years. We have three very talented people who I'll introduce in just a minute to talk you through all of your options. And then we'll also be discussing how to plan a long journey in an electric vehicle, how to find charging infrastructure, how easy is it to use, and general kind of success stories from some long distance EV drivers and two fantastic founders of two very useful apps for any EV driver. But of course, it would be rude of us not to talk about the FASTER project in the FASTER webinar. So over to Donald to give us an update on proceedings.
Thanks, Euan, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're delighted to have so many of you here with us again this evening for the second in our series of monthly webinars. And can I thank all our panelists for joining us this evening and giving up their time to share their knowledge and expertise in this area with you all. I suppose I just want to give you a very quick update on some of the work that we've been doing as part of the FASTER project over the last few weeks. And I'm going to start off in the area of infrastructure procurement, because as Euan alluded to, the key deliverable for the FASTER project will be the installation of 73 rapid charging stations across the programme regions. In terms of what's happening in Scotland, our project partners at Hightrans are currently completing an evaluation process on a public procurement exercise that they've been carrying out. And I know they've received a number of submissions for that. So we will hopefully be moving forward over the next few weeks to contract a provider for the infrastructure in the western part of Scotland. So that's quite exciting. In the Republic of Ireland, our counterparts at Louth County Council have been engaging in a series of interviews with charge point operators and hardware suppliers over the past number of days. And again, those interviews will very much dictate the next steps in the procurement process. So we're hoping that things are moving along quite quickly there as well. In Northern Ireland, Ulster University are overseeing the procurement of the charge point network here, and we're expecting another update on that procurement process over the next while as well. So I think some of the colleagues from Ulster University and perhaps Hightrans are joining the webinar this evening. So evening, if those guys are on the call. Over the past few weeks, I also attended Fully Charged Live back at the end of April. So for any of you that were at that, or any of you who are maybe thinking about it going to future events, it was well worth the trip. Over the course of the 3 days, I went along to quite a number of the brilliant discussion panels, and I know some of the speakers we have here with us this evening. Took part in a number of test drives, and I think just the general atmosphere and the buzz at the event itself was just something to behold, and was great to see such positivity from everybody in attendance at Fully Charged. Also over the past week, we were invited to exhibit on behalf of the project at the Local Authority Services National Training Group Roads Conference in Sligo here in the Republic of Ireland, and that was last Tuesday and Wednesday. And again, there was a huge amount of interest in the FASTER project from all the local authorities right across Ireland that we spoke to. One of the projects that I'm currently working on as part of the FASTER project is to deliver a range of tools and support services for councils and local authorities that are looking to develop their own EV strategies and infrastructure strategies. So we'll be rolling that particular aspect of the project out over the next month or so. So more information on that again will follow over the next few webinars. Again, over the past week, I met with Euan and Rick from Generate Media in Glasgow, actually at the Arnold Clark Innovation Centre last week. And we are producing a series of 10 films as part of the EV Talk film series, and looking at a range of different electric vehicles, from passenger to commercial options, new and used vehicles. So if you keep an eye out for the first of those films, it will hopefully be released in the middle of June and on a monthly basis thereafter. So we're very excited to see those rolling out. And can I just add, if at any stage between webinars or whenever, if you do have any questions around the FASTER project or the work that we're doing, don't hesitate to reach out via email or by the project website or social media channels. We're happy to help and answer any questions you may have at any stage. So before I hand back to Euan, we're just going to launch the first of this evening's polls, and it's really just to get an indication for us of where we all are at in terms of our electric vehicle journeys. So if you can provide some answers, we'll give a minute or so for everyone to answer the quick poll.
Superb. Thank you very much, Donald. And just whilst we're waiting to find out whereabouts you are on your EV journey already in the poll here, we shall introduce the first three panelists of the evening. Donald, you mentioned the Arnold Clark Innovation Centre, where we had great fun filming 10 electric vehicle reviews in 5 days. So Stephen Campbell is one of the EV gurus who's just an absolute font of knowledge, who's based at the Arnold Clark Innovation Centre, which is a fantastic emporium of, well, it's not so much an emporium, a museum of electric vehicles that you can come along and take for extended test drives. There's no pressure to buy. Basically, if you're just looking to dip your toes in the water, or if there's any specific makes and models that you've got your eye on, but you want to make sure it's right for you, you can come and check them out. Thank you for joining us, Stephen. And in terms of our other two panelists, we have Jonathan Porterfield, founder of the legendary Eco Cars, which is a well-renowned electric vehicle retail specialist, source to order, deliver anywhere in the UK. Many thanks to Jonathan for indirectly providing the used EVs that we took for a spin as part of that FASTER project EV review filming. I didn't have to go far to find them. They were on my driveway, but yeah, thank you, Jonathan, for supplying those back in the day. And Simon Acton, founder of Next Eco Car in Republic of Ireland, again, legendary EV sales and sourcing specialist who is very well respected in that neck of the woods. Thank you, all three of you, for joining us this evening. You've been at this for some time, so your knowledge on the breadth of EVs that are out there will be very much appreciated, especially because we can probably end the poll now and have a look at the results. I'll just flick that over for you. So if I just share these results, you should be able to see we're actually joined by quite a few EV veterans this evening, unsurprisingly, but some of you have just recently purchased an EV for the first time. So I think particularly the latter half of this webinar, where we're looking at long route planning and so on, will be of much interest to you. But there's plenty of you in here who are looking to buy or lease an EV. So yeah, excellent to see that we've got that for you. And actually, the people who are looking to buy or lease an EV at the moment, then tell us in the chat what kind of requirements you have, or if there's any specific EVs that you're after, because this could help to shape the kind of conversation this evening. And if there's any kind of specific requirements that you have in terms of passengers, range, budget, then certainly these three panelists in front of us will be able to provide lots of useful info there. So I suppose we should start with the basics then, shall we? So if you're looking to buy an EV, as I've already said, what are the typical factors that people should consider? Stephen, shall we start with yourself? What would you recommend when people are looking into electric vehicles for the first time? What are the main factors for them to consider?
So the first thing I would say is, why do they want to switch to EV? For some people, it might be the idea of being more environmentally friendly and reducing their carbon impact. Some people, it could be business use, tends to be the tax incentive towards the vehicle. And then for others, it's generally the whole running cost element of it. So it's for a lot of people trying to justify that extra cash spend sometimes, that extra monthly spend to save money in the long run, which is a big thing. And that's certainly one of the most, probably one of the biggest trends that we're seeing, especially doing what we're doing at the Innovation Centre, is people, especially just now, noticing the fuel prices going up. That's been driving a lot of people in towards looking at electric cars, maybe around about kind of the time where a lot of people are making that transition or looking to, and they're certainly kind of being propelled towards that almost. So for me, things to consider are, the main thing for me is, when are you going to charge? Because some people aren't going to have access to a home charger, but that's not the be all end all. I'm forever telling people that is more about where's your lifestyle going to be at, how's that going to fit around everything you're going to be doing. Because, for example, me, I could put a home charger in, but I know I wouldn't necessarily have to. So commutes is a big thing. We did a lot of research into looking into what your average consumer will do. And when you're looking at an average UK driver, like the average daily miles they will do is 25. And we're now comfortably sitting where our average EV is over 200 miles in its range. And for that 25-mile commute, that's just a fraction of that potential range. So range anxiety is actually something we anticipated to encounter a lot, but it's now actually something that's kind of moving to the background for a lot of people. Particularly because we've got a lot of early adopters that are coming into our centre that know the kind of the element of charging already, and they know the advancements that are being made. But for people that are switching over just now, where to charge is more the question. Range is still something that gets asked, but a lot of people are now very aware of the fact that the technology is great, the charging infrastructure is a lot better, and it's continually improving, so that we don't get asked about that too much. So actually, I would say a lot of people are now just at that point where they're looking for the cars that they like, that fits their needs, because we're now, I would say, after last year, and especially all these new models came out. And from working at the centre just before, at the end of 2020, the models and all the dedicated electric platforms that launched in that last year were huge. I mean, you had ID4, EV6, Ioniq 5, Enyaq, just to name a few. And it's really kind of been massive since then. But then you've still got all the staples of EV motoring, like your Hyundai Konas, your Leafs, your Kia e-Niro. They've always been kind of a lot of people's bread and butter, so to speak, and they've actually continued to remain relevant after all that time. So to answer the question fully, what do they need to consider? Where and when are they going to charge? What car is going to suit best for them? And are they really in it? Is it the running cost? Is it justifying saving money? Is that going to be the big thing? Or can they justify that larger expense just because they want to get an EV to do the right thing, or just because they want to advance with the times and the technology that's available?
True. And well, as you're saying about the sheer kind of explosion in the number of EVs that have come to the market in recent years, I want to get Jonathan's input on this, because the EV that you have in the background there is one from many moons ago, when batteries were considerably smaller and when the options were considerably less. But in terms of the kind of earlier day options, just how much have things improved in your experience, Jonathan, and how relevant are the likes of that Mark I Nissan Leaf that's behind you in terms of people who are looking to get an electric vehicle? Who would those suit, and just how versatile are those older EVs?
Yeah, well, first off, I think Stephen just summed up everything that I was thinking. So well done, Stephen, that was just brilliant. Yeah, so back in the day, that was 7 years ago, when me and Chris, Plugged In Adventures, we went from John O'Groats down to Land's End. We spent 40 minutes messing about at Land's End, where we took that picture, and we drove back to John O'Groats. Totally bonkers, because we didn't sleep for something like 46 hours. It was stupid, not very safe, but we did it because we wanted to prove a point. So yeah, back in 2015, that 24 kilowatt hour Leaf, it was one with a 6.6 onboard charger. It's had a realistic range of around 75 to 80 miles. In 2011, when I started selling used EVs, my bread and butter was Mitsubishi i-MiEVs, C0s, Peugeot Ions, with a 50-mile range at best, and very little rapid charging. So in the space of, well, let's say 10 years, we've come on leaps and bounds. It's just the whole market has just transformed. The amount of progress in 10 years compared to, you know, leaving the horse and cart and the Model T forward, is just, we've done so much in such a short relative period of time. So, yeah, what was the rest of your question, Euan? I'm sorry, I've forgotten.
So yeah, in terms of people who are looking to buy electric vehicles, are those older EVs, are they still practical? Are they still reliable?
Yeah, so again, echoing what Stephen said, it depends what the needs are. So just as an example, I supplied a Leaf to a customer here on Orkney, best part of 6 years ago, to early Japanese 24 kilowatt hour, so heavy degradation on the battery. Realistically, I think it had 90,000 miles. It had 35, 40 mile range, massive degradation because it was an early Leaf. Sold that to a couple who live on Westray, which is an island that measures 10 miles by 2 miles. It can never leave Westray. And in that community, they have an issue getting fossil fuel for various reasons. So they get fossil fuel anxiety on Westray and Papa Westray and all the other Northern Isles. So depends on your needs, you know, and if you're only doing 15, 20 miles a day and you never go any further, then consider a £4,000 or £5,000 Japanese Leaf that will suit your needs. So a lot depends on budget, obviously, and I've seen people's requirements shift, obviously, pre-COVID, and now, as of now, everyone's worried about incomes dropping and the rising cost of living. So it's a constantly shifting market from a dealer's point of view as to what people want. But echoing what Stephen said, traditionally, you know, in the 10 plus years I've been selling just electric vehicles, the first thing has been, how much money am I going to save over fossil fuel? And then the feel-good factor of them doing their bit for the environment has always been a bolt-on feel-good factor. But the primary driver for people making this switch was, I want to know I'm going to save money on running the vehicle. And that's carried on. But now I'm hearing more and more people saying, well, this is the way it's going. So I better get rid of my diesel now while it's still worth something, because 2030 is coming and I need to make the switch. So it's funny how people's thinking and motivation has definitely shifted over the years.
True. One thing to kind of explain to anyone who's worried about older EVs having battery degradation, the Leaf is very much the exception that proves the rule. The earliest Japanese-built Nissan Leafs, 2011 through 2013, had a notoriously poor cell chemistry in them, and the range did degrade quite quickly. As soon as they started building them in Sunderland and they introduced a better chemistry, the lifespan has improved significantly. The Leaf is borderline mechanically indestructible, and if you've got a Sunderland built one, the battery should be pretty good. But that said, the Leaf, known for having the kind of the worst design battery because of the Japanese Leaf incident. But I mean, Simon, in terms of your experience with the many used EVs that you've sold over the years, presumably other makes and models that do have liquid or air-based battery cooling systems have proven to, would you say they've retained most of their original range, even with high, I was going to say mileage, but of course in the Republic it would be kilometerage that you encounter?
Yeah, yeah. I suppose just to cover off the Leaf piece, I think, yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, a lot of the later Leafs, 2013 onwards, that we would see would still have pretty good battery health. Some of the earlier ones, the Japanese ones, as you say, were more problematic. But having said that, I've even found massive interest in those cars the last few months, where people were maybe discounting them as an option a year ago. Now they're really kind of relooking at their cost of living and saying, well, actually, I could quite happily live with a car that only realistically does 50 kilometers on a charge, because it's going to save me a load of money. So there's still, even, and I sold one maybe a couple of months ago that is down to about 70% on his battery, but it suited for the guy that was buying it. It suited his use case, and it was cheap, so it worked for him. Yeah, I mean, if you look at it in the Leaf in comparison to some of the other cars, like, for example, the ones that Jonathan and I would probably be most familiar with, like that have been around the longest, like the Renault Zoe and the original BMW i3. I mean, I would say, on the whole, if you look at the battery health of those three models, you'd probably find the Zoes and the i3s would stand up somewhat better than the Leaf over time. But we're talking about a few percentage points here and there. I mean, as you say, there's active sort of temperature cooling on the Zoe, which definitely helps the health of that battery over a longer period of time. So you tend to see a bit more on those. And yeah, the BMW battery seems to be pretty indestructible. They're very good. And, you know, they were offering, I think, you know, they even stepped back and said, yeah, we'll give an 8-year warranty on even the earlier cars. I think they originally offered 5, and then they came back and said, no, we'll happily warranty it for 8 years. So still seeing very good battery health on those.
That is just how confident they are. Actually, we've obviously talked about the kind of older, generally kind of small-ish to mid-size vehicles. The Leaf is kind of golf-sized in comparison. But in terms of larger kind of family cars, perhaps estates or SUVs and so on, one thing that I remember seeing on the Irish EV Owners Association was there were quite a few people who asked for big family cars that you can fit 3 children's booster seats in the back. So in terms of the options that are out there today, what would be suitable for larger families like that then? Simon, again.
I still think that's quite a challenge unless you go for some of the much more recent and larger cars. I mean, I think, you know, at the cheaper end of the market, I'd say look at the MG 5. I think that's a good choice. I couldn't guarantee you get 3 seats. I mean, the seats are different sizes, so you'd have to look at it on a case-by-case basis, depending on what seats you have. But yeah, I mean, I get almost once or twice every week, someone comes at me asking, what can I get in terms of a 7-seater that's affordable? And unfortunately, we still can't really answer that question satisfactorily. Although I did notice there was a good video on the new Berlingo, the Citroen Berlingo electric, which is, you know, comes in I think around 35,000-40,000 euro, which is still a lot of money. But then when you compare that to the sort of 7-seaters that were available until now, you know, like the Tesla Model X and some of the Mercedes models and things like that, I mean, it is a step in the right direction. But yeah, for people that need more space, it is still quite challenging. Be interested to hear what the other guys' opinion on that is as well.
Yeah, Stephen.
Yeah, I can help out with that one. I see Debbie in the comments, who I know obviously, saying she struggles. I can sympathise, having spent a lot of time with her trying to figure that out. You're definitely right. There's not a lot. It's something we get asked about a lot. I see a couple of people saying about kind of booster seats and stuff, but when we kind of take it from perspective, we think of, right, what's the biggest thing we can think of, and that's 3 full child seats for some people. And realistically, you might be looking at having to spend upwards of £1,000+ to get one of those fancy brackets that fits the 2 ISOFIX on the exterior. But then you need a car that's wide enough, and then you need to change seats and stuff. So that's tricky. The Berlingo, that's probably quite a good one. Not actually saw one in the flesh yet. And then the other things we had been saying to people was things like the Vivaro, the Vauxhall Vivaro, the people carrying version, and like the Citroen e-Space Tourer were probably the kind of things you were looking at in terms of affordability. But it's 100% a big kind of gap in the market. 7-seaters are something that's pretty hard to come by. And until such a time as Volkswagen bring out their ID6 or whenever that's planned to come to the UK. But yeah, for the time being, you're looking at a kind of much larger MPV if you're looking for something semi-affordable. And then you're more or less looking at that premium bracket, I would say.
Jonathan, you've become something of an expert at sourcing used electric vans, of which I believe some of them have a few more seats in them than normal. So yeah, I can see you putting your hand up there. I have a sneaking suspicion I know where this is going to go.
No, I wasn't actually, but you've just reminded me. So there's an ENV combi van, which you can get as a 7-seater, which is sort of basically a van with seats and windows in. So that's quite popular, and I've seen a very, and Simon will probably agree with me, they've seen a rising values because they're so hard to come by. Even the 24 kilowatt hour or the 40 kilowatt hour ENV combi are like gold dust. And I agree that there is that element of the market that's not being met by the car manufacturers. And I think, whether you guys will agree with me, it's your traditional car manufacturer. I just liken them to drug addicts in a way. They've got to wean themselves off fossil fuel, and they can't do it overnight, otherwise they'll go bust. So they're going to target the most popular segment of vehicle, hatchbacks, now estates, and you know, the glossy sports cars, because that's their biggest turnover or their biggest earners. And then those niche markets, vehicles that can tow, people carriers, 4x4s, pickups. They're not such a big segment, and so they're going to concentrate on them less until they're forced to. It's this march towards 2030 where I think, the likes of Stellantis, Vauxhall, Peugeot, Citroën and Ford, they're probably having a lot of sleepless nights because 2030 is not far away. And in the meantime, they're just shackled with fossil fuel and trying to make the switch. And, they can't offer these 7-seaters at the minute because it's not the biggest seller for them.
True. I'm aware of time, actually. So what I would like to hear from you, each of you in turn, I'll give you a minute each, and I'm going to give you 5 topics of vehicles. So best city car, best motorway mileage muncher, best large family vehicle, best van, and best bargain bucket option, and why. So shall we start with Simon, then Stephen, then Jonathan?
You're probably going to have to hit me with those 5 again.
Best city car. Best
city car.
Yeah.
I'm going to say the Renault Zoe, and I would say that for a couple of reasons. First, because it's pretty compact, and secondly, because it has 22 kilowatt AC charging, which is abundant in cities, so it's perfect for that sort of environment.
True. In that case, we'll mix things up now. Stephen, motorway mileage muncher.
Oh, I was expecting city car.
Sorry.
For me, motorway mileage muncher, I've got to go with something like maybe the Kia EV6, kind of middle of the road. Really loving that car just now. We're seeing a lot of attention for it. Great range, 18 minutes to charge, 40 grand for the base model. That's pretty compelling argument with over 300 miles.
Carl O'Flaherty says in the chat, he started a new job and he's been given an option by his employer of a Kia EV6 or a Peugeot 508 hybrid. EV6 every time, right? It's just such a beast of a machine. Yeah. Carl, do the thing and thank us later. Get the one with vehicle to load on it as well. 3-pin domestic socket. We took an EV6 and its identical sibling, the Ioniq 5, up to Whiteley Wind Farm for the Faster EV project film reviews, and we had a picnic. We took a kettle and a toaster, sat in the boots, and had a little picnic. So handy. So Jonathan, big family car EV, best option and why?
Big family car. I've got an e-Niro 4 Plus, love it, fantastic, great range, and I like it because it's quite half the ground. I had a choice between that and a Tesla Model 3. Love the Tesla, but it's too low. So for me, it ticks all the boxes, is the e-Niro. And it doesn't look like an EV, it just looks like a normal car, and I quite like that. And just briefly, best city car, just get in quick. I still love the Mitsubishi i-MiEV, Citroen C0, Peugeot 1, great for city work, if you can find one. And then, because they were built 2011 up to 2013, but great EVs.
What's the typical price for them these days? Because obviously the price of everything's gone up. But
I was buying them for about 3.5 grand, for a 2012 plate. And someone would probably agree with me. If I saw one for 5, I'd have their hand off. £5,000, not euros. So they've actually risen in value. Great.
None here. There's I think there's 2 or 3 here. You just don't see them at all.
Yeah. True. Everyone wants to mention the city car, including yourself, Stephen. What's your favourite city car? We'll let you get that one in.
I'm going to have to go with my heart for this one. And for me, it's the Mini Electric. It's fundamentally feels like a Mini. It's, BMW Mini, they do it pretty well. They can take a nice car, put an EV motor in it, battery, and it still feels the way it always has. So got to commend them for what they're doing. I absolutely love it.
I've got to say, none of you said the right answer. The best city car in the world is the Honda E, which is sheer unbridled joy. The turning circle is ridiculous. Just honestly, it's funky on the outside, it's funky on the inside. It does that vehicle to load. It's got a 3-pin socket. The interior is the most inventive one I've seen in forever. It's really intuitively laid out. And the turning circle on it is nuts. Jonathan.
And you can feed fish in it as well.
Yeah, virtual aquarium. It's brilliant.
One more for that. For any gamers in the audience, you can plug a HDMI into it and play it through the dash. I've had some real fun with that one.
Oh, we were playing Mario Kart in it. It was great. It was a great laugh. Yeah. I just love the fact that Honda went full on inventive Honda with it. So yeah, genuinely absolute joy. Wish the battery was a bit bigger anyway. But yeah, very quickly. So bargain bucket option, probably the i-MiEV we've just discussed, but vans, because obviously commercial vehicles are mainly diesel and it's important to decarbonize them. What's the best van options on the market, would you say? Who wants to answer that one? Jonathan.
For price, EMV 200, still a great little workhorse, and they actually put some thermal management in the van version, little hamster wheel with the aircon. So really good all-round bread and butter van. but a good value ENV 200 with
Excellent.
the 6.6 onboard charger.
Good shout, Simon.
I was going to say the Maxus range of vans. They're really good value. I don't know if they call them Maxus in the UK as well as Ireland. Yeah, they do. Yeah, so there are various different sizes. So they're actually doing quite a good job of covering different bases for all the kind of different commercial needs you might have. So for me, it will be that.
Excellent. Well, I'm afraid that that's all the time that we have for the first half of this this webinar, but the Q&A will be open to everyone. So everyone go mad with your questions, any EVs that you're particularly looking at, or specific sectors of EV that you're looking for, like is there such a thing as an electric estate, for example. Ask those questions, and these three fantastic gents will answer those for you in the chat, and we'll go through it at the Q&A at the end as well. Thank you so much for your time. We'll see you in about 20 minutes or so. So we've got time for another poll very quickly. Having talked about which EV you're going to get into, how far are you going to drive it? What's the longest distance that any existing EV drivers or people who've rented them or whatever have driven in an electric vehicle? This is in miles. I do apologize for our viewers from the Republic of Ireland who do things in proper metric units, which would be the sensible thing for us to do, but it's what we've got. Got some spoiler alert, because I know you can't see the results yet. Got some fairly high mileage drivers in here yet in EV, so that's good to see, because what we're going to be talking about now is planning a long distance road trip in an electric vehicle. So can we welcome to the stage our four panelists? Mark McCall from the Electric Vehicle Association of Northern Ireland, straight in there, first to appear. Great to see you. And Melanie Shufflebotham, the director and founder of Zap-Map, which is just an invaluable tool in the iPhone or smartphone, I should say, of any EV driver. We also have Mike Gill from WattsUp, another very useful app, EV planning, route planning tool. And we have Heather Kennedy joining us now as well, who is from the Electric Vehicle Association of Scotland, Scottish EV Drivers Club. It's the Judean People's Front versus the People's Front of Judea. But Scottish EV Drivers Club. Thank you, Heather, for joining us too. Let's have a look at these results. I'll just share these with you now. So yeah, there we go. We're looking at most existing EV drivers having done triple figures on a single journey, with many of you having, about a quarter of you actually, being comfortably beyond the range of a typical electric vehicle on the market today. So you're definitely going to want to be planning some charging stops in there. So I suppose if we go from the completely impartial kind of wisdom of our sort of resident EV driver representatives, we'll start with yourself, Heather. What do you consider when you're embarking on a long electric vehicle drive?
Yeah, obviously you want to make sure you're fully topped up before you go. I do the usual checks with the tyres and everything like that. I'm lucky I've got a home charger, but at the moment I've got an On2 car, so I've got free charging with it, which is great, so I don't need to charge at home. But yeah, it's really just making sure you've got all your snacks for the journey. And yeah.
It's true. I think that
snacks and juice.
It's arguably fair to say that in Britain, it's a bit easier at the moment to do longer journeys because the expansion of the charging infrastructure has been so strong. But over in the Republic of Ireland's been doing okay, but Northern Ireland is starting from way back, isn't it, Mark? What's the situation like at the moment, do you find, for doing kind of longer journeys?
Yeah, well, as you say, Euan, it's difficult here at the moment, although probably Northern Ireland's small enough that if you have a home charger, it doesn't maybe come in all the time. But I've done a few trips. I've driven right down to the south of Ireland and Kinsale on the southern coast, which was a good motorway journey via rapid chargers. And I've also done a Highland drive, 5-day drive as well, around the Highlands and on the Isle of Skye as well. So a bit of experience. I also ran our son to Manchester University with one stop, Belfast to Manchester, 120-minute stop around Carlisle. So yeah, I think it just takes a little bit of extra planning. Maybe it's all about knowing the abilities of your car. If you're a new EV driver, it's probably good to look at the manual or go to somewhere like the EV database and read up on the charging capabilities of your car, and just having an idea of where you're maybe going to stop. And also a backup plan too, because as we know, you can't really rely on all the chargers. Certain networks maybe are more reliable than others, and I guess you'll get to learn that as well. But it's good to do that little bit of extra planning, and that makes for a stress-free journey then.
You were far more diplomatic than me there when you said certain networks. I was like, go on, name names. But yeah, when you're doing these long journeys, wouldn't it be handy if there was an app that told you where you should be stopping, Mike?
Yes, so there are apps available, and there are a range of apps, which is great because, as you know, a few years ago, the rapid chargers, for example, that drivers use on longer journeys, they were far less common, several years ago. Now things have changed significantly. We have thousands of rapid chargers from a number of different companies across the UK. So the situation really has changed. And yes, there still needs to be some element of planning because there aren't chargers everywhere. But certainly there are options now, and it's far easier to get around the UK. What I would say is that there are apps available from individual companies, and some companies have chargers all across the UK, and it is possible to get around with those apps alone. I think what most drivers will find is that they need to use more than one company to get around if they're doing longer journeys. Some of the poll results there were several hundred miles. So you probably see that you'll need chargers from different companies to do that sort of journey. So it is helpful to be able to plan ahead, and we can do that with WattsUp and also Zap-Map too. Zap-Map are very comprehensive. They'll have chargers from all the major CPOs in the UK. So those tools are available.
And actually, we'll come back to WattsUp in a minute then, and exactly how it works, because it is a brilliant app. But Zap-Map, of course, is one of those apps that's on the homepage of my phone. Because, well, Melanie, I'll let you explain what it is. But if only there was a map of where you could find your charge points and find user information on how reliable they are. Tell us more.
Thank you. Yeah. So I guess there's obviously a lot of experienced EV drivers on this call, so hopefully most of you will know about Zap-Map. But really the genesis of Zap-Map was 10 years ago when we were talking about electric vehicles, and we're thinking, how are people going to find how to charge? So we started with a spreadsheet. I think there were 700 chargers we had back in around 2012, created a map, and then it's really grown from there. As Mike says, there's so many chargers now we've got 30,000 chargers on Zap-Map, of which around 5,000 are the rapid or ultra rapids, which are the ones that people need when they're going on a longer journey. And I think the key thing that we knew right from the beginning that people would want would be understand. So it's all very well knowing where the chargers are, where they are, whether they're compatible with your car, but also whether they are available to use. So we integrated with a large number of charge point operators. They gave us their data on a sort of data sharing agreement. So we take their data in, which brings in two things. One, as soon as a charge point is added, we then add it to Zap-Map. And secondly, we get 5-minute updates from the charge point operator, so we can see if that charge point is available to use, out of service, or in use. And that's for around 70% of points across rapid charging, ultra rapid charging, and what we call slow and fast charging. And then in addition to that, we have this community layer, which I know that a lot of drivers really find useful. So we know that sometimes those statuses aren't perfect from the charge point network. So we have our chat function where EV drivers, when they've done a charge, they can post, yes, I've done a successful charge, or actually there's a bit of an issue. And I think what can happen is that some networks aren't perfect with every single vehicle. So people can get to know that and really take the knowledge from the fantastic EV community there. So that's sort of the genesis of Zap-Map. And then on top of that, that's sort of all about searching and using different filters. And in terms of, I think if I'm planning a longer journey, I've personally got my favorite networks. At Zap-Map, we do a survey of EV drivers to work out which are people's favorite networks, which you can see online. I think that the top three are InstaVolt, MFG EV Power, and Osprey, who will have really great service. And so I think of the sort of those key networks when I'm planning, and then plan a route before I go on my trip, and then I can pull it up when I'm in the app, and in fact also see it in the in-car navigation system on CarPlay or Android Auto and follow it there.
Excellent. And that's the point. Yeah, Zap-Map is more than just a map now. The fact that you've got, as you said, the Zap stats, the number of items of charging infrastructure that are in place in the UK now. I remember looking at that when I was talking to someone, kind of pulling up the page because they were saying, oh, well, it doesn't seem as if there's that many charge points going in. I said, well, actually, I can tell you, this kind of happened real time. Well, I can tell you within the last month, actually, there's been how many? It was just like, honestly, it's going like that. But obviously there are some parts of the UK and Ireland that are a bit behind. So hence the importance of the Faster project, which will be a fantastic addition to Zap-Map and indeed WattsUp when it goes live. But in terms of that live data feed from charging networks about the status of those chargers versus the Zap chat function where people say, yes, I had a successful charge, or, oh, wait, was there an issue? I just want to do a quick kind of run past of Mark and Heather here. When you're using the likes of Zap-Map, what do you trust more, the live charger status or the Zap chat from other people who've used it recently? Start with Heather.
Yeah. To be honest, I usually read what everybody else has wrote first, just to get an idea, because they also would say things like facilities that's maybe available and things like that as well. So you don't obviously get that in the live status, but absolutely the live status is brilliant. Saves you having to rock up to a charger if you know that it's got somebody at it. So yeah, true. And what about yourself, Mark? What do you prefer, the kind of I say anecdotal, the community evidence or the live data feed from the charger?
I think if I was planning a trip, I would always look at that sort of anecdotal evidence. Someone's been there yesterday and charged, or someone says this has been out of order for a week. That's great to have that. And as Heather says, it's good to have both. Yeah, definitely well worth looking at Zap-Map.
True.
Just for
Mike,
for a slightly different view, we take a slightly different approach to Zap-Map, as you may know. So we don't have comments, and the view that we've taken is that we try to keep it very simple. So we want to take the data directly from the operators, and if there is a problem, then we hope that the users will speak to the operators, and then that feedback loop can be closed, and any problems can be dealt with. So that's the way we deal with that access to live data. So I would say that the operators have been very open in the last 2 or 3 years. I think we're seeing the operators sharing their data much more widely, which is great news. Because I think that's very important that they have access to comprehensive, accurate information. And I know that we've been very lucky to get that information in Zap-Map and get similar information, which is good news for drivers.
Absolutely. And whilst we're with you, Mike, of course, it would be rude of us not to discuss the exact nature of WattsUp, what it is, how it works, because it's a very clean app, isn't it? It's very effective.
Sure, thank you. We've tried to keep it very simple. So we're aware that the market's changing, and we have, up until now, we've seen early adopters, enthusiasts using the network, but now we're seeing mass market move in, and really we'll want this to be as simple as possible. Ideally, there wouldn't be any apps at all, I have to say. If we could avoid apps, that'd be great. But I think at the moment, while it's at this stage, we still need access to information about where the chargers are. So that's what we do. What we do is we show chargers for longer journeys. So we only show rapid chargers. That allows us to keep a very simple interface. And if you don't mind, can I bring up the app?
Yeah.
And share this?
Yeah. Well, we can have a quick look so that we can run through it. Melanie, if you've got a Zap-Map on your PC, we'll absolutely let you have a go at that as well. But we'll just have a quick look to kind of the route planning side of things.
Okay, so hopefully, can you see that there?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's all coming up. Yeah.
Fantastic, it works first time, that's good news. So that's the interface, and what we can do is we can, the big green button at the bottom there is new journey. This has been set up already, so when the app's opened, you choose a car, and the chargers that you'll be shown will be the chargers that your car can use. So you don't need to worry about the connectors, that's automatically taken care of. So new journey. Now I'm in Ireland at the moment, so I'm going to drive north. So I'm going to choose the destination here, and I'll choose Belfast. And we'll see the chargers on that route. So we can get a quick overview. Now, thanks to ESB, we can see the live status of the chargers through Ireland up into Northern Ireland. So, and we can scroll through those. So the route planner that we have allows drivers to make that decision for themselves. So we don't suggest chargers. We show the distance to chargers. We show how many connectors are there for the car. So you can see there at Mayfield Services, there are a number of connectors that drivers can use. And all of those oblongs are available at the moment. So those are charge connectors that are available for drivers. So you may decide to stop at Mayfield Services if you can make the 152 miles in your car. And then press start. So the idea is that this app would run in the car. So it can be used for planning, but the idea is that it can be used in the car so that you see the status of charges as you drive along. So you can make a decision when to stop. And as you drive along, the bar at the bottom there will move along.
There is a rapid charger nearby.
Maybe you can some alerts there, and you can see that. So you can see the charger in Limerick there is in use. It's gone blue. It's very simple. Sorry, a very simple color scheme. So green is available, and that's really what drivers want to know. You know, is the charger available? There is other information that we could provide, but really, will I get a charge is what they want to know. So that's what we do with the app there. It can also be used for future journeys too. So you can, let's have a look, we'll do maybe Glasgow let's do Glasgow to Inverness. So this might be the sort of route that Jonathan would do. And he might decide to use these chargers that he sees that are available. So those are the chargers en route, and with an overview there, you can see what the status of those chargers is at the moment. It just takes a moment there. There we are, good. So yeah, from Glasgow, and you can see there are some chargers that are out of action too, and that's important for drivers. Yeah. So that the red colour there does show that some of those chargers are out of action. So you may decide to use the Newton Street car park, but be aware that some of those chargers aren't in use at the moment. Further north, you can see that there are some in use and some available. So as you drive, you can make a decision where to stop. And out of interest, we now have of course, we have the Tesla supercharger and Avimore now in the app too. So there are options there. So you can see things have changed significantly. Maybe 10 years ago, there were 1 or 2 chargers on the way from Glasgow to Inverness, but now there are quite a few options. And this app would, show you what the options are and allow you to make that decision where to stop. Based on the operator, perhaps you might decide to stop at a Charge Place Scotland, charge at Pod Point, or any of the others. So it's really about giving drivers the options, letting them see what's available. And if they decide not to pre-plan, decide to just jump in the car and just go, then they can do that. And excellent. Stop on the way.
Yeah, superb. Well, I'll tell you what, despite having worked on cutting edge battery electrochemistry and things like this over the years, I'm just impressed that you've managed to share your phone screen on your PC. I'm surprisingly technophobic. But Melanie, obviously, Zap-Map, I don't know if we didn't plan to have any kind of live demos or anything, but do feel free to give us a brief tour of Zap-Map if you like. And one thing as well I was wanting to ask you was, I understand that you had some pretty phenomenal stats recently, bonus points if you can remember them off the top of your head, about the live status availability of charging infrastructure across the UK at the moment and its general kind of availability, reliability. Do you happen to have that off the top of your head? It would be a very mean question from
Sure.
me.
No, that's fine. It's top of mind. Mike, that was a really nice demo, and I really like that functionality. You can sort of see all the chargers all in a row, and I think that's great. It's sort of a slightly different approach to Zap-Map. I think it's got loads to offer EV drivers. I'm not prepared with a live demo, but please, anyone download Zap-Map and have a go at planning a route. In terms of availability status data, so one thing that we do, because we have all of this data across all the different power ratings from 3 kilowatt chargers right up to 150, 250 kilowatt rapid chargers, we do have this amazing view of utilization and reliability across the network for probably 70% of points, I say 70% of connected points, because some charge points like the Zero Net network just are totally dumb units, so we'd never have any data from them anyway. So last week, and maybe some people saw the BBC reports on Friday, and I had an exciting time going up to BBC Breakfast to talk about them. So that was a media highlight for me. And then after that, I thought because there was a little bit of the BBC were doing this highlight of 1 in 10 rapid chargers out of service, which actually, to be fair, is true. But I wanted to give a little bit more granularity on that data. So I did a LinkedIn post about all the sort of the data underneath that. And really what it shows at a top line is Just under 7% of all chargers that we're tracking are out of service on that snapshot. And that sort of splits between a higher number for rapid chargers, but much lower for slow and fast chargers and for ultra rapid chargers. And what we've done also is look at all the chargers. I think for most people who are out there know that there's certain networks with legacy chargers, which are typically out of service a lot, which really sort of change the numbers. So we also looked at the chargers which were installed from 2021 onwards and then pre-2021. And when you look at that, the numbers drop quite dramatically. So I think, to me, the message is, there's hundreds of thousands of successful charges which we're tracking on our network every month. So lots and lots of people are having a very, very good experience. There are some issues, certainly there are some issues, but I'd say it's mainly in some specific networks and mainly the older chargers. But still, I think, for EV drivers, there needs to be, the CPOs need to, the net charging networks need to have more focus on maintenance and reliability, because it's, it is really important. Even if it's not as bad as the media say, but it still needs to be probably better as we get to the mass market.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again for that. And thank you for not just what you've done with the original kind of core of Zap-Map, but everything around it as well. The stats that are openly available make for a fascinating read. So don't just download both WattsUp and Zap-Map, but take a little wander through the Zap-Map website in general with all of the stats and information that they have. If you're new to EVs, it will definitely help to get you kind of clued up on what to do. It really is a fantastic resource. So thank you, Mike and Melanie, for everything you're doing there. Yeah, Mike, yeah.
Euan, so for new drivers, and there seem to be quite a few new EV drivers, in the webinar here, why not, if you need to do a long journey, go out to a rapid charger and give it a try, figure out how the process works before you make that longer journey. And I think that can be quite helpful. Great shout. Yeah, just get the lie of the land, get used to how it works, and then it definitely makes it. In fact, incidentally, that's what I did when I did my Elbil road trip in Norway. Elbil is Norwegian for electric vehicle. We did not need to charge our electric rent-a-car anywhere near as soon as we did, but it was all app based in Norway at the time, so we had to make sure it was all behaving itself before heading properly out into the wilderness and potentially getting stuck. Turns out it was all fantastic because Norway's so far ahead of the rest of the world on EVs. But definitely a great shout about doing that practice run. We have come to the end where we've got Q&A now, but just before we go into that and before we go into our final poll, I just want to bring back the great traveller of these isles, Jonathan Porterfield, to have a kind of final thought on planning epic journeys. There we go. Yeah, I doffed my cap to you, Jonathan, because you've done south of England to north of Scotland, coming up on 50 times, including with the car behind you in that photo there. So would you say that since you started driving EVs, the whole experience has got easier or worse? Just a kind of quick 30-second sort of thoughts on that for your long journey treks.
It's got easier because there's more choice. It's getting easier because all the new rapids going in are just going to be contactless payment, which is a massive step forward. So yeah, it's become a bit boring because it's so easy. There's no adventure anymore because I've got so much choice. So the days of doing my crazy drives like with Chris Ramsey in the Leaf, when it was just Ecotricity and a few Charles Bay Scotland, and now we've got, as has been mentioned, the likes of Osprey, Instavolt, Ionity. There's just choice. That's what we want, is choice. And it's just a world apart, and we've come such a long way. So range anxiety, it's not really an issue. You don't have to do the planning you used to have to do. It's so much simpler.
I can see Mark kind of burning up with envy there, because Northern Ireland, unfortunately, has not received anywhere near that kind of investment in rapid chargers that the rest of, the Republic of Ireland and the rest of the UK has. But yeah, Mark, would you say that, bearing in mind that Northern Ireland is seeing an upswell in EV uptake, has it kind of got easier to get onto a rapid charger, or are you kind of struggling at this stage?
No, Jonathan should come to Northern Ireland for another adventure if he wants to go to the Wild West. No, we're definitely about to turn a corner. I think, to be upbeat. Projects like the Faster project here are very welcomed, and there are now maybe about 4, 5, 6 major announcements in the last few months, all dependent on a lot of things to do with our grid and connections and things. But the next 18 months to 24 months should see a big difference over here.
Excellent. And yeah, I very much look forward to seeing all of those being added to both of the apps we've just discussed today in the very near future. So I think if we go on to our next poll, which is to see how any of you veteran EV drivers at home plan your long distance EV journeys. So, you know, do you use the likes of Zap-Map and WattsUp, or do you use the apps that are specific to a charging network like ESB eCar or ChargePlace Scotland? Do you use an in-car search function like, you know, the kind of Tesla just chuck supercharger in the sat-nav, or do you just wing it? Oh goodness me, we again, spoiler alert, we've got one hardcore individual who just wings it. Goodness me. Good on you. I too like to live danger. Oh, there's two of you. There we go. Absolute daredevils. But anyway, so we'll just let that kind of filter through, and it's time for the Q&A. So we've got a couple of questions in the chat. Welcome back all of our panelists. We have Stephen and we have Simon joining us as well in just a second. There we go. So yeah, let's have a look at these questions that you've been sending our way. So first up, we have from Ron Bagnall. What are the challenges preventing ChargePlace Scotland cards being accepted on all networks? Melanie, you would like to answer this question, I believe.
Oh yeah, yes. So this is the issue of roaming and being able to have all the networks open to everyone, which I think is every EV driver's dream. Sort of the idea, just like on the mobile phone network, you can you go across networks. So I guess what are the challenges? I mean, in Zap-Map, we are one of our aims is to provide the sort of a simple cross-network solution, Zap Pay, which enables you to be able to charge from within the app, which is sort of the same sort of idea. So we are living this live, trying to get all the networks, networks on board. And I think there's a number of challenges. One, there's a sort of strategic challenge. Does that network want to open up? Do they see the benefit on it, or do they just feel that they want to build their own brand and they're big enough to be able to not to, I guess, share with other people and want to sort of own the customer, which I think is maybe a bit short-sighted, but there's definitely networks that think that. Then once you sort of have broad agreement, there's the whole sort of legal detail about working out the commercial model and setting that up. Then when you've got that all sorted out, there's the integration, the technical integration. So from our perspective, it's quite a long lead time, and we've from ZapPay's point of view, we've signed up nine networks, including ESB, who I can see online, and they're a great partner both in Republic of Ireland and in the UK. We've got 4 networks live. We're busy integrating 5, and then we're talking to all the other networks in terms of getting them on board as well. So it doesn't answer specifically about ChargePlace Scotland, but there is, I guess, a bit of a process of getting the networks to be thinking in a cooperative way, and then the actual realities of people signing up.
True. And just to kind of follow on from that, Ryan Robertson from East Lothian Council, one of the most proactive EV infrastructure officers in the land, has made a very good point. There are some networks that allow you to associate your RFID card for the likes of ChargePlace Scotland. So we love heart emoji after I said that. Yeah, so he said that you can take your ChargePlace Scotland RFID card and you can basically register it with other charging networks, normally via the rapid charger itself. You scan it, it doesn't work. You go on the app and say, yeah, that's my card. I want it linked to my Fastned account in this case. And it goes, all right, okay, cool. Incidentally, you could do that with like a Tesco club card or anything. So there's some networks that do that. It's one of the few things that Genie Points ever got right. That was very catty of me, wasn't it? But yeah, so there's a couple of networks that do that, and it makes a lot of sense because it's not officially linked. It's just a case of that code that's in that card. It's nothing to do with the fact that it's a ChargePlace Scotland card. It's just like that network now recognizes it as a card that you use with it. So it's a kind of halfway house thing. But before we go on, I'll just share the results of the poll. I've just realized I've been selfishly keeping them to myself. There we go. So you can see them now. And it looks like Zap-Map and WattsUp are into the runoffs for supremacy, as they're leading the way. They've got 2/3 of the, well, I was going to say, yeah, 2/3 of the respondents have said this, with ChargePlace Scotland and ESB eCar being somewhat useful for route planning as well. Over half of you reckon that. And yeah, there's a couple of you winging it like a boss. So yeah, awesome. In terms of other very good queries from you this evening, a really good one actually that Simon's already kind of shotgunned for this one. Can you describe the queuing etiquette and whether it generally works in practice. So if a rapid charger or charging hub is completely busy, how do we make sure that whoever turned up first in the queue gets on it and so on? Simon.
Did I gun for this one? I don't know.
You did indeed, yeah.
Okay. I think it's about just being sensible and polite with people and communicating with them. I mean, I think that, it can be challenging if there's a big wait, but I think, on the whole, certainly, I'm sure a lot of the people that have been driving EV for a while, most EV drivers are very helpful and friendly, so you shouldn't have too many problems. I think, communicate with each other and agree what the situation is. I know it can be challenging and a lot of people don't always feel comfortable doing that, but yeah, I think that's what my advice would be.
Superb. We've got a very, sorry, Jonathan, yeah, come on in.
I think etiquette as dealers is educating new EV owners, because times I read on social media, so, the rapids will be busy, there'll be people waiting, and there's that new EV owner who's determined to get 100% into their vehicle, and they feel it's their God-given right to have 100%. So again, I think that's down to dealers and when they pick the car up, and just to educate them that, charge up to 80%, 85, possibly 90. And then just tell them that the rate of charge from 90 to 100 will be so slow. It's not worth you sitting on the rapid, carrying on with your journey. So I think there's a lot of education on etiquette for new EV owners, which I've always been really passionate to say when somebody comes to pick up their car.
Electrochemistry time. So when you're charging a battery, especially rapid charging it, what you'll find is that the cells will the individual cells that make up the battery pack will eventually reach the maximum voltage that are allowed to go to. And that normally happens on a rapid charger, probably about 70-80% state of charge. If you continue to beast that amount of power into the battery pack, because power is current times voltage, then that voltage is going to go above the safe maximum for those cells. And that means that they start to degrade and they become unstable and you break the battery pack. So what the battery has to do is start throttling back the current. Power is current times voltage, as I said. So it's holding the voltage at its maximum, and then the current is tapering off, which is why the charging power decreases to the point that on some cars it takes as long to go to 80 to 100%, from 80 to 100%, as it did to go from 0 to 80%. So genuinely going much above 80% on a rapid charger is wasting your time and everyone else is in the queue. That's the explanation for that. If you do need the full charge, move on to a slower AC post. And then that just frees up the rapid charger for people who actually need a rapid charge. So there's been an excellent question come in. Sorry, Simon, you got your hand up again. Sorry, I'm trying to move my Q&A panel so it's not blocking all your faces. There we go.
Just very quickly, just to add to what Jonathan said, and and Jonathan and I will both do the same thing. We'd do a really detailed handover of a car with the owner so they know what to do. But I suppose for anyone that's on the call that is thinking about buying an EV or is about to take delivery of one, ask for a proper handover. It's like, a lot of dealers won't do it. They'll throw the keys and, a lot of people are getting into an EV for the first time. It's not fair, there's stuff you need to know, there's stuff you need to learn. So don't be afraid to ask. You probably will find out you know more than the dealer does, but anyway, it's worth a try.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the point. Yeah, there are quite a lot of car dealers who know surprisingly little about EVs, and it's quite depressing. So it is very pleasing on that note, very quickly, Stephen, to see that the Arnold Clark Innovation Centre is a thing, and that there is so much training that's gone into, sort of mainstream dealers, if you wish, within the Arnold Clark chain. So yeah, that's very promising. I've been very impressed with all of your colleagues last week when we were doing the filming.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a long journey. We're so close to the start of that journey, so much work left to do, but yeah, that is a very big part of it. It's good to see that if our internal colleagues are not sure, that they're actually passing the customers' information to us as a resource. That's what we want them to do, so that even if that one individual who's having a customer that's collecting an EV is not confident, that they're still getting that information. I mean, I know a few faces here have been to the centre. Even since you've last been, there's been a few changes. Like, for instance, our rapid chargers, we actually have 2 posts that tell people about charging etiquette and AC and DC charging, which is something I'm keen that I think as an industry, we need to move towards using AC and DC as a charge. One manufacturer I kind of work with through my work in the Innovation Centre a little bit is BMW, and on their website they actually use AC and DC, and I'm a big advocate for everyone moving towards that, because it's a much more understanding way. Once you've got the grasp of how that works, you understand how rapid charging works, and then you understand that whole 0 to 80% etiquette thing. So that is a big part of it. And one of the things we're doing is looking at rolling out kind of standards to all our branches, so that it's not just people that are going to come to the Innovation Centre and get trained by us, so that the full dealer network within Arnold Clark is almost accredited internally, and we're holding ourselves to that high standard we want the company to be at, and transparent, and obviously be forthcoming in our information. We don't want to be dragged behind in the future. We want to be kind of running forward into that as well. So that's why the Innovation Centre exists. So yeah, I couldn't be more proud of what myself and the team are doing. And obviously I know Debbie and Hazel are watching me, so I hope I'm doing them proud as well. But
Yep.
yeah, it's good to be part of that community anyway. I've totally loved every minute of it.
Mm-hmm. Again, yeah, that's very pleasing to hear. And I would say that whether you're buying new or used, the three panelists we have this evening in terms of EV kind of breadth of knowledge, Next, EcoCar and Arnold Clark all seem like a very trustworthy bunch. So yeah, again, thank you for everything you've done, especially from, I mean, Jonathan, in your case, it was way back in 2004 you started this, wasn't it? So yeah, you've been at this for quite some time. I am aware we're into extra time now, and Donal is going to tell me off if we keep this going much longer, but there's two very good questions I would like to answer as quickly as we can. First one from Marcus Clifford. Would Melanie and Mike like to address the way that Zap-Map and WattsUp obtain information from the various charging networks, the kind of live reporting of charge point status? How does that work? And to kind of tack on to that, I mean, they're saying that obviously the information needs to be accurate, otherwise we end up risking kind of affecting consumer confidence in to some extent. But to kind of tack on to that from the nerdy side of things, is it OCPP 1.6 that does this, or does it need to be a bit more advanced? So Mike, I think you nabbed that one first, and then we'll come to Melanie afterwards. But if we can get some super quick answers on how that information is obtained.
Yeah, so on the first point, it was a fairly non-standardized way up until recently, but things are moving towards standardized protocols in terms of sharing information, which is great. On Marcus's point there, if the information is inaccurate, if you could let either, I'm sure, Melanie or myself know, through the usual channels, and we'll look at that, because we do want the information to be accurate. Certainly, it needs to be relied on. It needs to be something that drivers can use, and if there's chargers available, they need to know that that's the true situation. In terms of open source public interface for real-time information, we've been pushing this for a long time. So for several years, we've made the argument that this should be available. It's good to have different apps on the market. It'll be a big market, and everybody's able to then choose which app best suits their situation. So yeah, let's get accurate information from the operators. Let's have it in an open format. We'd love to see that. Other countries do it. We have an agreement in New Zealand actually with the EV Roam system, and all the chargers go through that. So it can be done, and we'd love to see that in the UK too.
Happy days. Melanie, anything to add on that in terms of the procuring of that data, I should say?
No, I mean, I think Mike's covered it pretty well, and yeah, agreed that more open data is good. And there's a few networks out there who have stubbornly refused to share their data, and it would be great, I think, for EV drivers to be able to see that data in apps like WattsUp and Zap-Map.
Excellent. And the final question before Donal really gets me in trouble. So Paul Buckley asks a peach of a question that Mike and Melanie have already answered in the chat. So I will say, anyone else, any of the other panelists, if you feel passionate about this, jump in first, and then we can come back to Melanie and Mike. But Paul asks, are more hubs like sort of GridServe-esque hubs needed, rather than just smaller sites with 3 to 4 chargers, or indeed 1 charger for that? So basically, you're looking at kind of motorway service station size, maybe like a dozen chargers or more. Are more of them needed, or can we get away with 3 to 4 here and there? Anyone want to answer that first?
I'll go if that's okay.
Yeah, Heather, go for it.
So yeah, more definitely more like hubs that has a larger amount of chargers, I would say. I came up from Fully Charged recently, and first time at one of the MFG sites, and I was totally amazed with the amount of chargers there. There was no queuing or anything, but there was still loads of people, you know, actually charging. It's got facilities nearby. We definitely need more of that, I think. So like, say, your Braintree, GridServe and things like that, they've got facilities, they've got enough chargers for everybody that they're not fighting over them. Yeah, absolutely is the way to go.
Superb. Very quickly, we've basically got 30 seconds each here. Simon, then Jonathan. Simon first.
I think it's a case of looking at it on a case-by-case basis. I think certainly on big motorway routes and stuff like that, you probably want more of the GridServe-esque things. Probably on more regional roads, you want more of the 3-4 charger sort of hubs. I think it's too straightforward to say we need one or the other. We need a combination of location-appropriate services.
Absolutely. Jonathan.
There's a good friend of mine that runs a YouTube channel called Plug Life TV, and he went to Norway. And he highlighted all the rapid charging hubs that were totally deserted. So I think, again, I just keep pointing to Norway. I think they're 5 years ahead of us. I think that's the way we need to go, because it seems to work in Norway. And they've got a huge proportion of EVs on the road.
Very true, very true. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for all of your wisdom and insight this evening, and also for staying on a wee bit longer than originally planned. Just everyone ends up asking such good questions and getting involved in the chat in this. It's great to see. So yeah, thank you once again to all of our panelists: Mark McCall, Mike Gill, Melanie Shufflebotham, Heather Kennedy, Jonathan Porterfield, Simon Acton, and Stephen Campbell. So we will be back for the next Faster Project webinar on the 22nd of June, Wednesday 22nd of June. This one's going to be a different time of 11 a.m. because we've managed to nab some very senior people to discuss the future of Scotland's EV charging infrastructure. So I know that certainly Charge Place Scotland was mentioned earlier, and there's a lot of people will have lots of very juicy questions for some of the panelists that we'll have with us at 11 a.m. Wednesday, 22nd of June. So there we go. Make sure you book the morning off for that one and get your questions in, and it will be great to see you there. Thank you once again.